For me, active imagining means to concentrate on fantasies and to let them flow. So I give you an example, and you could, I need your fantasy, I need your imagination, and so you could just start with that. For example, I see a bird, I follow this bird, it leads me in a certain landscape that I can describe. The bird and the landscape trigger a specific emotion. I might meet someone in this landscape, or I'm just there following the flying of the bird. Jung himself conceived the notion of active imagination in a broad sense, much broader than it is understood nowadays, namely a dialectical Auseinandersetzung between consciousness and unconscious. Jung's notion of active imagination covers, first of all, the shaping of the symbol, seen as visualization of a symbol, or even more, illustrating it in paintings, drawings, or in sculpture, or to present an inner situation in dancing. This is also a kind of active imagination. That means, in a way, the symbol is embodied. For me, a very interesting aspect we haven't explored really, I think. It is important to me to keep this broad idea about active imagination by Jung in mind, even if over time only the development of the image in fantasy in a waking situation and the active dialectical interaction with it has been called active imagination. Jung mentioned the idea of active imagination in 1916 for the first time in his essay, The Transcendent Function. In this essay, he describes the formation of symbols. He does not use the expression active imagination, but deals with the question of how human beings are able to concentrate on their fantasies and to shape it. Especially important for him was to eliminate critical attentiveness. These inner images or inner words have to be expected, perceived, and expressed in words or paintings, even sculptured with the whole body. This was his primary accent. Jung spoke about active imagination in more detail in the introduction to Richard Wilhelm's The Secret of the Golden Flower. In those remarks, he spoke in first place about the psychic faculty of letting the flow of the inner images happen, unhindered as a prerequisite for dealing with fantasies. The psychic faculty of letting happen is comparable to the flow of inner images. And this is not easy because anxieties might block the flow of the images. The inner critical voice, so Jung, has to be eliminated. I think the critical voice can also be portrayed in visualization and dealt with. In a letter, 47, Jung describes in a brief way what he understands by active imagination. The point is that you start with an image. Contemplate it. You remember Giovanni Sorge's introductory talk. Contemplation was very important for Jung at this time. Contemplate it and carefully observe how the picture begins to unfold or to change. Don't try to make it into something, just do nothing, but observe what its spontaneous changes are. Any mental picture you contemplate in this way will sooner or later change through a spontaneous association that causes a slight alteration of the picture. You must carefully avoid impatient jumping from one subject to another. Hold fast to the one image you have chosen and wait until it changes by itself. Note all these changes and eventually step into the picture yourself, and if it is a speaking figure at all, then say what you have to say to that figure and listen to what he, she, or it has to say. Thus, you can not only analyze your unconscious, but you also give your unconscious a chance to analyze yourself. And therewith, you gradually create the unity of conscious and unconscious without which there is no individuation at all. This was a quotation from a letter to Mr. O from 1947. And in this description of active imagination, it is clearly expressed that the observation of the inner image is important, but also the dialogue with inner figures, if possible. We can also see that the model of symbol formation, as Jung described it, can be experienced in doing active imagination. The unconscious can be perceived, must be observed and accepted, and in dialoguing with the waking ego consciousness in reflection, both the conscious mind and the unconscious can become altered, expressed in changing symbols or in new formation of symbols. These symbols are signposts in the process of individuation, this process of maturation and transformation, in which, through the dialogue between the unconscious and the consciousness, a human being is on the way to become who he or she really is, but never was.